This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
Tonight, all new stories and the season premiere of Unsolved Mysteries. In the 1980s, one UFO sighting after another, numbering into the thousands, astounded residents of New York's Hudson River Valley. The controversy boiled over when maverick stunt pilots claimed they were responsible for the spectacular light formations. When she was just 17, Tammy Lynn Liepert had it all. She was a beauty queen, an accomplished model, and was well on her way to a career in the movies. But in 1982, Tammy began to withdraw, growing increasingly paranoid, until finally she vanished. In Paducah, Kentucky, a young stranger was seen loitering at the local airport, penniless and trying to talk his way onto a flight. People still wonder what drove him to make the desperate decision that would end his life. Join me for these intriguing stories on our season premiere. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.
Hello, everyone.
1982, the Miss America Sunshine Surf Beauty Pageant in Orlando, Florida. The eventual winner will be Tammy Lynn Liepert. Incredibly, at the age of 16, Tammy has already competed in more than 300 beauty contests. She has won the crown 280 times.
She was very loving, kind. She was always smiling. You never saw the child when she wasn't smiling. As young as I can remember, she woke up with a great big smile, and the last thing I saw before she went to sleep was a big smile.
Tammy Lynn Liepert was an uncommonly beautiful child. When she was just 4 years old, she was entered in her first beauty contest. Tammy's mother and father divorced when she was 7. Her fledgling career fell to the tender, loving care of her mother, who was a theatrical and modeling agent.
I was constantly busy running her around to where she had to go and what she had to do. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching her excel because she always went for the best that she could go for, the highest level.
Wing Fleming, one of Linda's clients, was just 11 when he began living at her house. He and Tammy were like brother and sister.
She would bend over and kiss me on the cheek, and I couldn't quite ever get it completely off. It was rather, embarrassing to walk around with this mark, but I think actually I learned to wear it proudly after a while because it's almost a status symbol. Tammy.
In July of 1982, Tammy Lynn was cast in the teen exploitation film Spring Break, which would go on to earn nearly $25 million at the box office. After Spring Break, Tammy went unchaperoned to an out-of-town weekend party. She came back a different person.
Sometimes I'd ask her, what was on her mind, if anything was bothering her. And she'd usually evade the question. She'd change the subject, or she'd say, oh, nothing, and then try to laugh it off.
Soon, Tammy's behavior began to take on paranoid overtones.
Hello? No. She's not here right now. Yeah. All right. Bye. Happy now?
Hey, what's the problem? I'm gonna talk to you. What did you say?
She said that she saw something so horrible that she couldn't talk about it.
Did I talk to you?
And she said, Mom, what would you say if I told you somebody was trying to kill me?
What are you talking about? Tammy can't tell anybody. What do you mean you can't tell anybody? You can
I kept trying to find out who they were.
Tammy, talk to me.
She never would tell me.
Tammy?
Tammy Lynn began a steady retreat into isolation. Linda and Wing had no way of ascertaining which of Tammy's fears were real and which were paranoid delusions.
Once she called me over to the window. She said, look across the street, tell me what you see. I said, well, the neighbor's got a new van. And she said, exactly. And, I didn't know quite what she was getting at. And she said, the van has mirrored windows. That means that they can see us, but we can't see them.
After 2 weeks of virtual seclusion, Tammy Lynn was offered a small part in the big-budget Al Pacino film Scarface, which began shooting in Miami in March of 1983. She stayed with a family friend, Walter Leibowitz. All went well until the 4th day of filming.
I received a call from the casting director to tell me that Tammy had a breakdown on the set. They said that there was a scene where someone was supposed to be shot and they had artificial blood spurted out, and they said when Tammy was watching the scene, she started crying hysterically, and it got so bad that they had to take her to a trailer.
Tammy, what's happening? Who's gonna kill you?
She was in a tremendous state of fear, anxiety, hysterically crying, saying something about money laundering, I don't know where to hide, things of that nature. What it was that caused this great fear in her, I don't know. When I spoke with Tammy's mother, I told her that she should take Tammy to a doctor and also take her to the police to find out if the problem was psychological or if there was some basis in fact that someone was actually trying to kill her and get to the bottom of it.
Tammy Lynn quit the film and went back to Cocoa Beach. At her mother's insistence, Tammy did talk to the local sheriff, but apparently never mentioned that she felt her life was in danger. Even with her family, Tammy's paranoia ran rampant. She became convinced that someone was trying to poison her.
Taste this.
Why?
Just do it.
There were good days and there were bad days. There were days when she was almost normal, almost. And there were other days when she was real edgy.
She was not the Tammy that we know. We did not recognize this Tammy in personality. She even began to take on a different look, kind of a wild look in her eyes, and scared look is what it was. And if she really believed that somebody was going to try to kill her, scared is the feeling that we were seeing.
On July 1st, 1983, Tammy Lynn finally snapped.
You open up. What are you looking at?
Not you.
I saw you looking at me.
Why would I look at you?
Don't.
What are you doing? Stop! Hey!
You locked me out. Why did you lock me out? Why did you lock me out?
There was this completely crazy look in her eyes. She wasn't her. I don't think she really knew who I was.
Tammy, it's Mother.
I just kept saying over and over again, Tammy, I love you, until I finally saw recognition in her eyes. I knew then, right then, that I handled that incident, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to handle the next one.
Linda checked Tammy into the Brevard County Mental Health Center for a complete physical and psychiatric evaluation. Doctors found no evidence of drug or alcohol use and kept Tammy in the hospital for 72 hours of observation.
After we took her home, she said, you've got to make me a promise. I said, if I can. She says, Mom, if anything happens to me, anything at all, I want you to get even with that person for me. Would you please? I said, what do you think's going to happen, Tammy? She said, I know you don't want to hear this, but he's still going to try to kill me.
Rick Adams was Tammy's best friend. They went out the day after she was released from the hospital.
At that time, Tammy, we got out of the van. And she looked at me, and she says, Rick, I love you. I said, Tammy, I love you too. And she said, I might be going away for a while.
Yes. We will have a cookout.
That next day, everything seemed to be extraordinarily normal. She seemed, I think, really be trying to impress me she was okay.
Mom, I'll be back in a little bit.
Right.
I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
I suddenly got frightened, real frightened. And I went to the door and opened it, and I just knew right then it was the last time I was going to see her.
This friend picked her up at her home in Rockledge, Florida, and they drove to the beach. And we talked to him, and he basically stated that They'd become involved in a verbal argument, that she had requested that he let her out near the glass bank in Cocoa Beach, and he complied. And as far as we know, that was the last person to see Tammy alive.
Stop it! What do you want me to do?
I just want you to shut up!
According to Tammy's friend, he dropped her off at approximately 3 p.m. on July 6, 1983, 5 miles from her house. She was barefoot and carried no purse.
She disappeared without a trace. We talked to some of her close friends. They felt strongly that Tammy was having problems at home, and that she had left home, and she wanted to leave home.
There's no conceivable way I would believe it. Because first of all, she was getting ready to go to California for 3 months. That's as far away from me as you could get, from Cocoa Beach to California. And she was really excited about going. What reason would she have for running away?
Tammy saw something. Tammy saw something that she shouldn't have. Tammy knew something she shouldn't have about someone that she was very frightened of. Sometimes I feel if I had asked her rather than told her that it was in her imagination, maybe she would still be here.
What could a 17-year-old girl have seen to cause her to fear for her life? During a breakdown on the set of Scarface, Tammy Lynn had mentioned money laundering. According to an official at the U.S. Customs Service, dozens of money laundering cases in Florida were under federal investigation at that time. Some call it sheer coincidence. Tammy's mother believes it is no coincidence at all.
I think Tammy is either a victim of foul play or she doesn't know who she is. I, as a mother, wanted to believe everything she told me, and I wanted to help her. If I had it all to do over again, I would go back and I would believe every single word she told me, and I would just hide her someplace until we found out what the truth was. But I can't do it over. And maybe she had to hide on her own, I don't know.
No matter what happens, I would like for things to turn out for the best.
This interview was taped in 1983 during Tammy Lynn's final beauty pageant.
Seem like the best aren't the best, and things that don't seem so good are the best. But I'll do my best no matter what.
When we return, a series of UFO sightings fuels controversy in New York's Hudson River Valley. The quiet beauty of New York's Hudson River Valley belies its location just 40 miles north of the bustling streets of Manhattan. The valley is home to upscale professionals and retirees. They tend to be well-educated and cosmopolitan, hardly the type of people you would expect to be swept up by UFO fever. Yet that is exactly what happened to more than 5,000 area residents between 1983 and 1989. The epidemic of sensational UFO sightings in the Hudson River Valley lasted 6 years. Ultimately, the entire episode was largely dismissed as a hoax, perpetrated by a group of local stunt pilots. However, to this day, many of the eyewitnesses maintain that what they saw could not have been a handful of airplanes. Dennis Sant, a husband and father of 5, has worked in local government for 17 years. He is currently the highest-ranking deputy in Putnam County. On March 17, 1983, Sant's home in Brewster was the site of an extraordinary event.
Come on in and see this!
Was a very large object. The structure of it was very dark gray, metallic, almost girder type looking.
What is it?
Girls! Girls, come out here and see this!
The object seemed to be very silent. The lights were iridescent, bright. They stood out in the sky in three dimension. It looked like a city of lights just hung in the sky, of all brilliant colors. At that time, the girls became very frightened and they ran inside the house. Then my son and I were just drawn underneath it. Felt very good about encountering a visual contact with the object. We followed the object around to the backyard, and at that point a feeling of fright came upon me. Thoughts started to flood my mind, thoughts of the craft touching ground, thoughts of an encounter with an alien being, thoughts of being abducted. All types of fearful thoughts started to enter into my mind. And it seemed only to be seconds before the object started to move again, but the feelings were overwhelming. From beginning to end, the 19 or 20 minutes that I had viewed that craft was also a time of self-examination of myself and who I was.
Dennis Sant and his family were not the only ones mesmerized by the extraordinary light formation. A few miles away, traffic screeched to a halt on Interstate 84 as a mysterious object hovered overhead. The Hudson Valley sightings had only just begun.
I was sitting there looking at it, and I wasn't afraid. I was just amazed. I was in awe of it. I didn't know what it was.
Officer Andy Sadoff, a 10-year veteran of the Newcastle Police, is also an instructor in criminal child abuse procedures. On March 24th, 1 week after Dennis Sant's sighting, Officer Sadoff was working routine traffic patrol.
I was working a 4 p.m. to midnight tour and assigned to set up some radar to look for speeding cars. I had the radar set up, and I looked up into the sky and saw, coming from east to west, there was a series of lights. And at first I thought it was a plane. It was quite a distance, quite far away, but it was really quite large. As I recall, there were mostly white lights, but there were green lights also. It was alternating green and white lights. It approached my vehicle, and as it approached the vehicle, it stopped, and it seemed to hover. There was no sound, and I'm looking at this thing, thinking, what is it? When I put my head out the window and I'm looking up at it, it was huge. The thing that I recall the most is I was amazed that there was no noise. There was no humming, there was no engine, no low sound to it. It was absolutely silent.
Just seconds later, the eerie silence was broken. Another eyewitness report.
Could you please send somebody else? I'm observing something incredible.
Unit 5 to base. I'm seeing it too. It's hovering above my car. It's heading towards town. I'm following it.
At the time that we started to transmit over the air, that was about the time that it started to move, and it moved very slowly, almost floated. And we followed it. We followed it until it disappeared off into the hills. I guess I was mostly curious as to what it could be, you know, excited to try and figure out, well, maybe it's this, or maybe it's a government thing, but I wasn't frightened of it, no. There really wasn't time to be frightened of it. I was spending most of my time trying to figure out why there was no noise coming out of this thing, so.
It was truly a flying city, if that's the way you want to call it. I mean, it was huge.
Computer engineer Ed Burns is a retired senior manager for IBM. At the time of the sightings, Burns handled the company's contracts in Japan and South America. On the night of March 24th, at virtually the same time Officer Sadoff was pursuing the mysterious object, Ed Burns was driving home on the Taconic Parkway, 10 miles north of Sadoff's location.
Out of nowhere, I got a lot of static on the radio. And I thought maybe I was on the wrong number, and then I went over to turn the dial again, and that's when I looked up and saw this craft. It was a triangular chevron ship, and the back of that chevron had to be as large as a football field, at least. It was one solid piece out of a chevron shape, and there was no noise. It seemed so close to the ground. It seemed like I could have thrown a rock at it, maybe.
Ed Burns pulled off the highway and joined a group of motorists by the side of the road.
Believe that.
All were gazing skyward, seemingly dumbstruck.
It was so shocking. This one fellow that I was talking to never did answer me a bit.
Isn't that incredible? Have you ever seen anything so huge?
And he was just staring at this thing, and I remember his size of his eyes was so huge. He never did answer me at all. And it seemed like I talked for an hour. It was probably only a minute. But I was so excited about it. I wanted to share whatever I was feeling at the time. Where was it from? I'm not into astronomy. Mars, I mean, I don't know the solar systems, but what I had witnessed that night was not from this planet.
The eyewitness reports indicated the object was slowly moving north over the Hudson River Valley. Officer Sadoff and at least 12 others saw it in Newcastle. 10 minutes later, Ed Burns and at least 20 motorists saw it near Millview. 10 minutes after that, the phones began ringing off the hook in the police station at Yorktown.
Yorktown PD, Officer Wolf. No, ma'am, everything is fine. No, we've had several reports. Everything is under control.
Every line kept going. Every single line, constantly. Answer the phone, another line would light up. Answer the next line, another line would light up.
Really nothing to worry. Please.
Got to the point, I got a call of the Taconic Parkway being stopped. The people were all out in the cars. It was starting to get really crazy.
Go ahead, Sir Dillon.
Because I tried calling the cars to find out if they saw anything. And the only one that called with the cars was Kevin, said that he would stop in.
Officer Kevin Soravilla had also seen the dazzling lights reported by dozens of Yorktown residents.
The object was extremely large and estimated to be close to 300 to 400 yards wide. We stood out in front, facing to the north. In approximately about 5 minutes, the object began to appear from the northern horizon.
Officers Wolf and Soravilla were standing side by side under the same sky, yet their accounts are entirely contradictory.
It's gotta be planes or something.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think I see a wing in there.
I don't think so. They don't look like planes.
Officer Soravilla is convinced that what he saw was one large object with a number of small lights.
I would say approximately 16, 18 lights running in a V formation, approximately 200 to 400 yards wide. I was standing between the lights to see any type of a solid structure, where he may have basically been staring at the lights themselves.
They look like airplanes to me, I says, Kev. I says, I live near an airport, so I see these airplanes every day. So as they were coming over, he says, well, you can't hear anything. I said, listen. With that, when we started hearing a drone, it wasn't one big solid unit. But if you looked at it for like a couple of minutes or even a fraction as it was coming over, I could see where some people would have gotten upset.
Suddenly, the Hudson Valley sighting had taken a dramatic turn. It appeared that the UFOs were a hoax, nothing more than small aircraft flying in precise patterns. But this earthly explanation was lost in an avalanche of additional sightings, which continued unabated month after month. In addition, many claim the circular formation photographed as it swept over the area is also a UFO. However, other eyewitnesses countered that the unusual lights they had seen were nothing more than small airplanes flying in wedge-shaped formations.
There's anywhere from upwards of 7 to 10 aircraft that do fly around in formation. And this is visible from our tower.
Anthony Capaldi has been an air traffic controller for just under 10 years. In the summer of 1983, he made an observation that seemed to settle the UFO controversy once and for all.
The first time I observed the formation flying, it looked a little peculiar. What's that over Slogan? And from our vantage point in the tower, they just appear to be just one big light because they are flying in tight formation. To estimate the size, maybe 2 football fields wide.
Must be 6 aircraft flying in formation.
I imagine it's possible at first glimpse that an observer may not be fully aware of what this formation is, but I don't think if this formation flew over an individual's head at 1,000 feet, there's any way you can misdiagnose it for anything but the formation flying due to the sound of the aircraft engines, and I imagine at 1,000 feet you could really determine that it's aircraft.
The UFO was surely seen before these hoaxer pilots began their night flights. And after these hoaxers began their night flights, people would call me up who had seen the UFO in previous days and said, well, I saw something strange in the sky, but it wasn't the same thing that I saw a week before. It definitely was planes. So you had people who saw the UFO, and then you had people who saw the planes and were able to identify each as being something strange and something totally explainable.
Oh, good God. I don't know.
Not funny.
I'm going to tell you something, honey. I don't know what the hell it is.
This home videotape showing a light formation above Brewster, New York, was taken July 24th, 1984 by local resident Bob Pozzoli. Philip in Broadmoor is convinced it shows a UFO.
Being a scientist myself, I'm still waiting for it to be proved 100%, although it has been looked at by a number of photographic experts who indicate that the movement of the object on the video seems to be one rigid object and not individual objects. Plus, there were hundreds and hundreds of witnesses who saw the UFO and said it was something strange, but the night that the airplanes were seen, there were also dozens of witnesses who said, in fact, that they did see airplanes.
This image was videotaped in June of 1984, also by Bob Pozzoli. Skeptics and believers all agree that it shows a squadron of small planes that some say are military aircraft.
Did you hear the engine?
If you look at that video, you can see that the lights are shifting position in relation to each other. The fellow who videotaped it is talking about he can hear the engines, he can see the stars as the object is passing over him. As a matter of fact, when that videotape was made of the airplanes, no one came forward to say they had seen a UFO. People called me and said they had seen airplanes flying in formation. But the night of the UFO sighting, when the videotape was made, I had hundreds of phone calls to different telephone lines of people who had in fact seen a UFO.
What is the truth about the spectacular light formations that cruise the Hudson River Valley? Were the aerial stunts performed by sophisticated pranksters, or UFOs of unknown origin? Even those who saw the same object at the same time cannot agree.
I personally think that it was an airplane or people who were playing games, trying to get a rush and an excitement of making people feel, hey, there's somebody from another world here, where in fact they were just fooling people's mind.
Yeah.
If it was ultralights, I'm a little amazed by the precision flying. I have to see it again to believe it. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure, man.
In a man's life, particular things unfold that make an impression for the rest of their life. This was one of those moments in my time that made a very dramatic impression upon me. What I saw was not planes in formation.
There was no shaking or movement or rocking back and forth of any of the lights. It was perfectly still. You know, I'm not trying to say what it was. I don't know what it was. I know it wasn't an airplane.
I tell the story a lot to certain friends that I can trust that'll believe me. My wife, I think, believes me because she loves me and respects me. I don't know if my children do, but they love and respect me. But they also read the papers, I guess, and I guess about this 5 other airplanes. Maybe they equate it to that. Boy, I'll tell you, I'll never forget that as long as I live. And 5 airplanes, it was not.
In preparing to film this story, Unsolved Mysteries asked the alleged hoaxers to recreate one of their flights during daylight hours. No one was willing to be publicly identified. This may be because when flown at night, some of the maneuvers violate FAA regulations. According to Tony Capaldi, most of the formation flights took place on Thursday nights. It is interesting to note that less than 1/3 of the UFO sightings occurred on Thursday nights. In a moment, a young man dies under tragic circumstances. September 30th, 1991, Paducah, Kentucky.
Are you a pilot? No, I'm sure not. Do you know a pilot I can talk to? No, sure.
Just after 6 p.m., a young man approached airport worker Wes Weaver at Paducah's small airfield.
Listen, I'm really in a bind. I really need to get out west. You got to know somebody here that can help me along.
I kind of thought that maybe he was into something he wasn't supposed to be into, running from something. Because he honestly, he didn't act drugged up, and he didn't act like he was drunk, and he really didn't act crazy. He was kind of desperate.
Come on, man. I mean, look, I got this jacket. Isn't there some way I can trade this jacket for a lift? You know, one of the pilots around here?
What began as an odd encounter soon evolved into a tragic and perplexing mystery.
I finally just kind of told him no, and made it to the point to where he should leave. And he stood around for a little while, and finally he went back through the hangar.
30 minutes later, Wes Weaver saw the stranger again.
And he had the jacket on, and I thought it was kind of strange. So I kind of slowed down and watched, and I saw him run across the ditch and jump up on the fence and jump over and run towards the plane, and that's when I radioed for someone to call security.
You better call security. We got a guy jumping over the fence at 2-2.
2 other witnesses saw the young man run across the airstrip.
Me and my husband was out in the yard, and this plane, pulled up, and we saw this guy running in the field. He ran over to on the other side of the plane. Well, we never did see him no more.
The way he was running to it so fast, he was up to something.
The only aircraft on the runway was commuter flight 2940, destination Memphis, Tennessee. Just before sunset, at exactly 6:49, the plane was cleared for takeoff. Everything seemed normal.
The plane got way up in the air, and I stood there, was watching. In a few minutes, I seen something fall. And I told my husband, I said, something fell out of that plane.
As darkness fell, airport authorities mobilized an extensive search, looking for any sign of the man witnesses had seen. At the northern end of the airfield, Director of Airfield Services Ron Jones noticed a section of fence which had been damaged. Lying at the base was the body of the young stranger.
It really hit me then that this actually happened, that someone actually got onto an aircraft some kind of way, and that someone had fallen to their death.
no identification of any kind was found on or near the body.
As we examine the hand, we note that the nails appear to be manicured and well-groomed.
Blood tests reveal no traces of drugs or alcohol in the victim's system.
We noticed that his body was well tanned and that there were not any tan lines. The pubic hair was shaved in a swimmer's type style or of someone who may have been wearing tights. We searched out leads with a male dancer troupe that was here, the Chippendale type dancers who were here the week prior, and we based that on his well-developed physical appearance, his tan body, the shaved pubic area, and all of those leads were negative whenever we searched.
This is the jacket worn by the young man. In one of the pockets, investigators found a pair of swimming goggles. Sewn into the collar was an ID tag inscribed Lieutenant L.F. Price, USAF. A check of military records could find no such person.
When we go back and look at this series of events that led up to this incident, the individual had approximately 90 seconds to 2 minutes to climb over a 7.5-foot high fence, traverse approximately 800 foot of terrain, including one ditch system, run around the aircraft's tail section, and then climb on the aircraft, although we have no actual eyewitnesses to his climbing on the aircraft. And again, the time interval was between 90 seconds and 120 seconds. It's quite an accomplishment.
Within seconds, Flight 2940 was barreling down the runway at 125 miles an hour. Once airborne, the speed increased to more than 190 miles an hour.
And that obviously is a substantial wind force upon anyone trying to stay on the wing of an aircraft with really no handholds. We judge at this point that he managed to stay on for approximately 3,000 to 3,500 feet after the aircraft departed the ground.
I wonder what was so important to make him take a chance.
Not
trying
easy.
to catch a ride
Not easy.
on the outside of an aircraft.
I think that there's an answer with his family. His family may not have even known that he was coming home. And I think that that's probably, if we could just get over that hurdle there, I think we'd find out why.
Join me next time for another edition of Unsolved Mysteries.
But I am not giving up. May not be able to. I don't know.
This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
In 1977, a trip to Lake Champlain began as an ordinary summer vacation for Sandra Manson. It turned out to be anything but ordinary when Sandra took this remarkable photograph along the shore of the lake. Some experts believe the picture may be evidence that Scotland's famous Loch Ness Monster has an American cousin. Meet Pierre, a man without a past. In May of 1992, he wandered, confused, disoriented, and penniless into a homeless shelter in San Diego. He hopes that someone watching tonight can tell him who he is and where he came from. Todd Kelly and Christy Mutsfield were high school sweethearts until Christy went away to college and began dating another man. A few months later, Todd Kelly was found murdered, apparently the victim of a lethal lover's triangle. Also tonight, a woman has been reunited with her family after she watched her own story on Unsolved Mysteries. Join me. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.
It's more difficult, isn't it?
Mhm.
What it looks. I know.
I managed to find a couple of pieces on that side.
Oh, on that bit.
Yeah. Just trying to clean it. And then I've got
Oh yeah, because that goes all the way across.
yeah, I've got found some of them.
Hamilton, Indiana is a small lakeside
So
resort
that
town
bit is
with
actually
684
up there, and there's a number 12.
In the summer, the population swells into the thousands thanks to vacationers looking for a tranquil escape.
Yeah, I see.
August 9th, 1989.
Hello, kitty. You want a treat?
Shattered for a minute.
Got some treats. You had a good sleep. Shouldn't have stayed up all night, should you?
At 7 a.m., Christy Mutsfield arrived at the home of her boyfriend, 19-year-old Todd Kelly. Moments later, she fled in terror.
I saw him laying on the floor and I screamed
You
his
kept
name.
waking up.
I could just see just by looking at him that something was very wrong, wasn't right.
Todd Kelly was dead, stabbed 7 times in the chest, back, and wrist. His death hit horrifyingly close to home for Christy Mutsfield. Just hours earlier, the two lovers had been together in the same house where Todd was killed. The authorities immediately questioned Christy Mutsfield.
Yeah.
The story which unfolded would eventually place her at the center of an ongoing
Sorry,
controversy.
cat. I can't kneel down.
By the end of the interrogation, the primary
Stand up.
suspect had emerged. Another man whom Christy had been dating. A man who represented the third side of a lethal lover's triangle, built on the affections of Christy Mutsfield. Christy met Todd Kelly during their junior year in high school. But Todd especially, it was love at first sight.
Todd was a very kind person, very sweet.
That's it.
He didn't hold any grudges against anyone.
Here you go.
Todd really just
I'll
cared
get
about
you
everybody
fresh drink.
for who they were.
I'll
After
get you a drink,
graduation,
eh?
he asked me to marry him.
Fresh
And
one.
I guess I said no. I said I really wasn't ready. I thought there was other things I really wanted to do right now. And it's pretty much really broken off right there.
The next fall, Christy enrolled at a small college just 7 miles from Hamilton.
There you go,
She soon
babe.
began dating Mahfouz Haq,
There you go.
a student whose
That's
parents
cool
had
drink.
emigrated from Bangladesh when he was just an infant.
And he was very outgoing,
Good girl.
very energetic. He was interested in what I had to say, and he was interested in what I thought and what I believed in.
Looking for number 12 now, aren't you?
I'm looking for anything.
Yeah, I know.
Seemed to be. Shortly after he met Christy, Mahfouz and one of his friends were arrested for 3 separate robberies. In one of them, Mahfouz stole $100,000 worth of jewelry from his old aunt.
He told me that it was all his friend, his friend was a pro at it, he'd been wanted in other states, and he pretty much laid it all off on his friend. After he was arrested, and he had to go on house arrest, I guess it would become, he became very possessive. And he said that if he ever saw me with anybody else, then they would probably kill him and then kill me.
A few months later, Christy rekindled her romance with Todd Kelly, but Mahfouz Haq, who lived nearby, remained very much in the picture. To 2 weeks before the murder, Mahfouz walked the 10 miles from his house to Christie's, only to discover that she was out with Todd Kelly. On August 7th, the day before the murder, Todd was at the home of a friend, Mike Kuhn, when Mahfouz appeared unexpectedly.
Mahfouz asked Todd if he was going to quit seeing him, and that time Todd had told him no.
She told me she's in love with him.
Their voices were never raised or nothing like that. They shook hands. I mean, and really it seemed like it was pretty much all over and done with, you know.
36 hours later, Todd Kelly was dead, and his house was swarming with police. Authorities were able to determine that Todd had died around 3:15 a.m. that same morning. Mike McClellan of the Steuben County, Indiana Sheriff's Department took charge of the investigation. He immediately noticed that the crime scene had been tampered with. It was obvious that the body had been cleaned up and then moved into the living room from another part of the house.
Upon further check into the house, we noticed that there were no sheets on the bed in the bedroom. We also discovered a spot where there was blood on the floor in the bedroom by the bathroom door. It was very hard to find this at first because it had been wiped clean. We believed that the sheets were used to move the body and to clean up the crime scene.
Oddly, the bed sheets had never been found. In the yard, police came across several cigarette butts. They matched the brand smoked by Mahfouz Huck. Authorities also discovered that Todd's car had been wiped clean of fingerprints and the keys were missing. They theorized the killer had planned to remove the body from the scene.
We discovered that the headlights of the car didn't work. I believe that the suspect was going to try and use that vehicle to transport the body. I think those efforts were foiled by the fact that he didn't know that the car wasn't working.
Police were convinced that the person who held the key to the investigation was Mahfouz Huck, who had now disappeared. They began to track his movements around the time of the murder. Between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. on the night of the murder, 2 eyewitnesses claimed to have seen Mahfouz walking barefoot in the direction of Todd's house. At virtually that same moment, Christy Mutsfield and Todd Kelly were in bed at his house.
When we were in bed, I heard noises outside.
What's that?
So I really thought that something was outside. And Todd said it was probably just a dog, because he had a dog tied up out back, and he said there was nothing to worry about. It was getting kind of late, and I told him I had to go home, because I hadn't really been home for quite a while, and I knew my father would be upset. So we left, and he said he was going to stay up all night, and he wanted to get something to drink.
Christy says at 2:30 a.m. she drove Todd into town. She believes Mahfouz Huck entered the house while they were gone.
We drove back to his house, and said goodbye in the car, and he gave me a kiss.
Forget to come back.
What?
How you go?
Don't forget.
Christy says she dropped Todd off at approximately 3 a.m. The coroner determined that Todd was murdered within 15 minutes. At 4:30 a.m., Mahfouz Huck called Christy from his parents' house 10 miles away.
Morning.
2 hours later, Mahfouz showed up in her bedroom. According to Christy, she broke off the relationship for good.
I've been thinking that maybe it would just be better if we didn't see each other anymore.
Great.
Bruce.
You're happy.
It kind of scared me, the tone of voice he had. I said, excuse me? He says, I hope you have a happy life. And then he walked out.
first glance, the case seemed open and shut. Mahfouz Huck, in an apparent fit of jealous rage, had murdered Todd Kelly. The authorities dismissed Christy Mutzfeld as a possible suspect. But then this seemingly simple case took a surprising turn. Todd Kelly's family is convinced that there are inconsistencies in Christy's story. While they do not believe Christy was an active participant in the murder, they do question whether she has been completely honest.
Christie's story is not the way that it happened. According to all the evidence that we have dug up and the evidence that the police have, there is no way that she was not there. She had to be there during the murder. When Todd and Christy returned home, and they probably started making loving, Mahfouz waited in the bushes. When he saw what was happening, that's when his jealousy took over, and he could no longer control himself and decided to finish the act. When Christy said she heard the noise, it was Mahfouz coming in the door. I do believe at that point, Mahfouz convinced her to help him cover up the murder. We do believe also at that point that Christy did help move the body. There was no drag marks on the carpet whatsoever. Mahfouz was not a large man. Todd was a good-sized fellow. It would have took a lot of strength to pick him up bodily and carry him out to the other room by himself.
I don't know why they want to blame me. I mean, I know Todd and I had our hardships, and I hurt him and he hurt me, and I know that upset them, but I don't know why they're blaming me.
The possibility of an accomplice is pure speculation at this point in time. There's no hard evidence, and by the evidence given at the scene, it appears that he acted alone.
Todd died approximately at 3:15 in the morning. It amazes me how a man alone could clean up that entire room, clean up the entire mess that he made, move the body, entirely clean the body, and also walk all the way back home in the amount of time that they had reported receiving another phone call. He had to have some help.
It's our belief that there's a good possibility he could have made it to Hamilton and back walking. There's also the possibility if it took him longer than what he thought at the crime scene, that he could have called someone to come and get him.
The Kelly family believes that Christy is the person who gave Mahfouz a ride home. In addition, they question her statement about what happened when she returned to Todd's house at 7 in the morning. She claims she did not immediately notice Todd's body, even though it was lying right by the front door. A point which even Sheriff McLeod concedes is unlikely.
We're not accusing Christy. The only problem is we feel that there's some inconsistencies in the things that she has told us. We've asked Christy for a polygraph examination, and she has refused to do that.
All we want from her is the truth, and the whole truth. We do not believe we're getting that from her. We do feel that possibly she could help the case out by stepping forward and telling the whole story the way it should be told.
Todd's family, they've been very hard on me from the beginning. They harassed me, accused me, unjustly accused me of everything. And when he let me go to his funeral, they've just been very accusing, and I realize they're hurting, and I don't think that they realize that I'm hurting too, and that everything that they say, and every time they accuse me of something, it just hurts more. I don't know why they're doing what they're doing.
Next, the incredible tale of a primitive sea creature, America's own Loch Ness Monster, said to live in the depths of Lake Champlain. Centuries ago, along the shores of what is now Lake Champlain in upstate New York and Vermont, the Iroquois paid homage to the spirit of a great horned serpent said to rule the murky depths of the lake. The fabled sea monster which captivated the Iroquois still fascinates people today. In fact, in the past 25 years, no less than 100 eyewitnesses claim to have seen the Lake Champlain sea monster, known affectionately as Champ. Sandra Mancy, a successful antiques dealer, grew up near Lake Champlain. When she was a child, her grandfather teased her with fearsome tales of the legendary creature.
Grandfather told us all about Champ, and when we would go fishing, he would say to us, if you don't sit down and behave in the boat, I'm going to throw you over and Champ's going to eat you. Of course, we didn't believe a word of it. It wasn't anything that we really believed in. It was just a threat of grandfather's. And so I just really kind of dismissed it for years and years as just one of grandfather's big stories.
In July of 1977, Sandra took this remarkable photograph, which fueled worldwide speculation and, not surprisingly, controversy. Sandra will never forget the day she saw Champ. That summer, Sandra, her 2 children, and her fiancé Tony were on vacation near Lake Champlain.
We stopped at this one place and went down over a bank, and the children were down further on the beach, having a great time. And Tony decided to go back to the car and get the camera because we hadn't taken any pictures of the children. And they had their shoes off and they're waiting down on the shore. And I'm sitting there by myself, and I'm looking out at the lake, and the lake started churning. My first thought was scuba divers, but then it's too much. It would be too big of a group of scuba divers, but then fish. There's some very large sturgeon and big walleyes in Champlain, so I thought, well, it's a very, very large school of fish. Then the head and the neck came out of the water, and then the back. And I watched it turn its head and neck and look around, and when it first came up, its mouth was open, and I could see water coming out of the mouth. I don't remember any eyes or any details like that, just the head and the neck and the back. And it's really, really surreal, and I'm feeling like I shouldn't be there. This is something I should not be witnessing, because to me this thing should have been extinct 30 million years ago. And even then, I'm not frightened. I'm in total awe and very calm. And then Tony came back, and he saw it.
Mikey, get out of the water! Get out of the water right now! Come on, get out!
And he got all panicky, screaming and hollering. Screaming at me to get back there. So he held me up the bank, and when he did, he handed me the camera, and he turned around, and it's still there. He picked up the camera and took one shot.
When Sandra had the film developed, she was certain she had taken a picture of Champ. She was equally certain that no one would believe that the photo was real. She threw away the negatives, and fearing public ridicule, kept the picture hidden for the next 2 years. Finally, in the autumn of 1979, Sandra had the snapshot blown up into an 8x10-inch print. At the urging of friends, she contacted Joe Zarzinski, who spent more than a decade researching a book on the Lake Champlain sea creature.
Well, here. Here's the photograph.
Great picture. When I opened it up, I thought it was too good to be true. After putting in so many years of researching, field work, and then finally there was this color photograph that clearly depicted a head and neck sticking out of the water. And it was almost as if all my Christmases came to me at once.
Can you point out on the map where you take the sighting was?
Well, yeah. I know it was at the north end of the lake.
Unfortunately, Sandra was unable to pinpoint the exact part of the lake where she had taken the photograph. Joe sent the print to the University of Arizona to be analyzed.
We digitized it and ran all sorts of computer enhancement techniques. We were looking like for pulleys or ropes or anything like that, superimpositions, but we found no evidence of hoaxing, and we concluded that that object, whatever it is, was there in the lake at that estimated distance. It wasn't any sort of superimposition.
When the photograph was released, it caused a media sensation. The New York Times and Life magazine carried the story. Many were reminded of another, far more well-known creature, the legendary Loch Ness Monster of Scotland. Some speculate that such creatures did exist. Perhaps they were prehistoric animals which had somehow managed to survive.
Well, the object in the Mansi photograph resembled a plesiosaur, which is an aquatic reptile from the Cretaceous about 60-70 million years ago, long-necked flippers. It resembles that. But that's a long time to have survived.
Another theory maintains that Chet might be a zooglobate.
Well, I saved the windows. I can't believe we've not got this kit in stock.
Was simply a lake sturgeon, which
I honestly thought I had that kit in stock.
No matter the explanation, the fact remains that following the
I
publication
thought I had that in stock. I pulled it all apart.
sightings were reported.
So, I had to go back to the 1960s version of it, which I do have in stock. And it's here. See? All printed off on card.
Previous day, Walter and Heidi believed they had seen
Yeah.
Chet.
These are front frames.
10 to 12 miles from the area where Sandra Mansi
Yeah.
had taken her photograph.
Just used old the back of Amazon envelopes. It is.
It was a quiet night.
The
just
card
as
off
still
them.
as glass, like the first
Just
night.
use that.
And I was
Just print it all on that.
and excitement.
So I'm gonna have to make it, but it'll be. It's the same windows, but it's just a different design. So I'll have it restored in a week. I'm just doing a little bit at a time on it. There's a lot of fucking putting all that out.
And when you look through the viewfinder, you can't see much.
It'll be good when it's done.
So we had quite a
Be
time
all
there
good.
where my daughter and my wife were saying, there, look. And I'd say, where? I can't see anything.
How are you, Rocket? You doing your day off? Extra day off.
One creature, but several. What he photographed is visible in the center portion of the screen.
We saw frequently a series of small humps coming up, breaking the surface, gliding along, and then subsiding again. But we watched these
Get a
creatures
picture of
for
this. I'll go
45
in
minutes.
the room and get the kit out
And
itself.
at one particular moment,
You know, the old one.
we spotted Heidi and
So I can have a
spotted
look at it
one
built.
not far from the boat, at the most 50 or 60
It
feet
should
from
be
the boat.
okay. It's
And
all
then began the footage for about 20 or 30 seconds of seeing these humps glide along. First 2, then 3, then 4, and then suddenly 5. All in a
Saves
row,
wasting it, doesn't it?
stretching out about
I mean, I can salvage the chimneys. I've salvaged all the glass out of it.
At one time I saw.
So I've salvaged all the glass.
But throughout the night, I had glasses.
I've salvaged the staircase.
I would see
Other than that, it would have just gone in the bin.
different sightings of them.
So,
And then I became very worried about it because my
it's
husband
not
had
cost
seen
me
it
anything to
before,
do
and
it.
now we see it again.
No.
Maybe this
Printed
is
off
some
3 sheets of
nesting
paper,
site.
that was it.
But I didn't
And the
know
paper
what
we
it
got was
was,
free and the
I
ink's
kept
free.
trying to make sense out of it. So we have a sun deck on the back. So I decided to climb up and stand on the sun deck, and I just scanned the water like that, back and forth scanning. And lo and behold,
Actually,
I
a
saw
channel
one of
called
those
Dave the
brown
Squirrel.
little
What the
humps
fuck?
coming along the water, and then
Is there?
all of a sudden, the
I know
next
there's a
thing
game as well, isn't there, called Squirrel with a Gun.
right at me.
Oh boy, yeah.
I will never forget it. And so, as I said, it just happened like that. All
Oh,
of a
there's
sudden,
another
there's
one.
this lead
What
hump
is it?
with the brown
Another
little
game, Dave the
all of a
Diver.
sudden, just like
Yeah,
that, sideways, just like that, looked
Dave
down,
the Squirrel.
looked at me, and I was screaming with excitement, which I wish I wasn't doing because I went down with it, came back, and then very gracefully, very slowly, went back down into the water just like that. And this was the movement. It was up and
There was no time for me to get the camera and refocus. I'd give anything now to have that on footage because what Sandy saw was, of course, an astounding thing. This creature looking at us and lifting its head out of the water. And
Could
what
have been
it
doing
did,
a bit at the top as well.
was to confirm absolutely for all of us that what we had
Just put
seen
the
was
link
true.
up just for subscribers.
Scientific opinion
Let me
is
go and
that
have a look. I'll have to
at
click on
least
mine.
one expert believes that what Walter Tappan photographed was nothing more than a school of fish. Perhaps he is right, but who can explain the Mansi photograph with the hundreds of eyewitness accounts recorded through the centuries?
Do I believe Champ exists? You'll never convince me of anything else. You can call it Champ, you can call it a monster, you can call it a Zeuglodon, you can call it a plesiosaur, you can call it anything you want. I'm telling you, in that lake, there is something extraordinary.
I think there's a good chance that there's something in Lake Champlain that still remains unknown to zoology. Something large, something unknown. And for that reason, if for no other, we should continue trying to find out what it is.
get comfortable.
When we return, the story of a young man who claims that he has lost almost all memory of his past. Imagine waking up one day with no sense of who you are, where you are, or where you came from. That is exactly what happened to a mysterious young man named Pierre, who seems to be suffering from near total amnesia. His odyssey began when he awoke in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by the fog and mist of a forgotten past.
Those first few minutes, you are literally nothing, and you feel so empty. It's very lonely and painful to be empty. I'm sorry if the voice shakes and I stutter more than usual, but it's not nice to talk about these things.
It was a chilly, windswept morning in May of 1992. Pierre says he inexplicably found himself along a deserted stretch of coastline with a blue duffel bag beside him. Feeling weak, hungry, and terribly confused, Pierre recalls that he made his way to the road, Highway 1, leading south from Big Sur, California.
So I started walking, and as I came upon, well, you could call it a village if you're polite, but it's a very small place. It's called Gorda. I saw the sign.
Pierre spotted a telephone, his first chance to obtain help. Only then did it dawn on him that he had no one to call.
Then I realized I couldn't phone anybody. And that's when I realized that I didn't know anybody, including me.
Alone and distraught, Pierre searched through his belongings. Tucked into one of his shirts was a crumpled piece of paper, a library card from the Boston Public Library. Handwritten on the back of the card was a name, April, Pierre. Pierre says now that it was not his signature.
Well, it's struck me that, hey, that's the name of whoever owns that card, and that must be me. It's in my belongings. It's with my socks. It's with my shirts. It's with my things.
Pierre claims he was plagued by hazy memories of San Diego, California, 400 miles to the south. With just $17 in his pocket, he set out hitchhiking. 3 days later, Pierre arrived in San Diego. He wandered through the streets of the city, searching for a recognizable landmark.
I was not so much frightened anymore as angry, because I was so sure everything would come back. But I saw downtown, and it said nothing. I looked at the building, and they meant nothing. I was so sure this city would bring everything back,
Still
and it
hurting
did
him.
not. And I walked the streets of the city for
But it's just been
a long
taking it
time.
easy today.
Pierre felt he was
Did some
hovering on the brink
laundry.
of madness. Finally, a sympathetic bus driver gave him a free ride to the St. Vincent de Paul Homeless Shelter.
We've had cases of people pretending they didn't need his work, but Pierre was very unique in that sometimes in the other cases, the residents are after something. They want to kind of use staff to get some needs met of theirs. And that wasn't Pierre's case at all. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't even ask for help.
In the past 6 months, Pierre has undergone a battery of physical and psychological examinations. Doctors theorize he may be suffering from trauma-induced amnesia.
The doctor here at the facility did screen Pierre and found no obvious physical causes or reasons for the amnesia. And he did say that the case was very unique from his perspective in that it's very rare to have somebody lose their long-term memory for as long as Pierre has.
While at St. Vincent's, Pierre began the painstaking search for clues to his past.
Still sore.
Soon, fragments of his former
Still
self
sore,
began to
but
emerge. Pierre apparently
I'm trying to
has
do as little
considerable
as
knowledge of
possible.
physics, advanced math, and computers.
I've just done some laundry today, didn't I?
He knows how to fly an airplane.
And just did a little bit on that model
Pierre
kit
also
thing,
discovered that he
restoration.
possesses
That's
some
all I've done.
artistic ability.
I've been sat down,
But other clues
but
only
I've been
serve to
making sure I've
deepen
been
the
moving
mystery.
about enough.
In the blue duffel bag was a neck brace. Pierre believes that he may have been injured while playing hockey. He also claims that he can type
Other
85
than that-
words a minute. Pierre also found that he has a
Well, it's nowhere near as bad as it was on fucking Friday. Nowhere. Nowhere at all. So, fucking hell.
every morning, Pierre travels
That
to
was
Balboa
so bad
Park
on
in San
Friday.
Diego, where he earns spending money as a street entertainer.
Well, it gives me an identity for one thing. I'm a musician. Now I'm something. I don't feel empty now because I keep myself very, very busy.
Hoping to add detail to Pierre's fragmented memories, Unsolved Mysteries arranged for him to consult with a police sketch artist. In the session, 2 portraits were
Huh?
created. Portraits of
I
people
just found a
who
load
may
more
have
of that
been
down
significant
glazing.
in Pierre's past.
Ooh,
The
an old
first was a
carriage.
man who Pierre believes is
Oh,
his
okay,
cousin
that
Luke,
into a-
nicknamed Curly.
I don't know.
According to Pierre,
Ooh.
Luke is an auto mechanic who once fixed the tour bus of a well-known group of Louisiana musicians, the Preservation Hall Jazz Band. The second girl is a woman who Pierre believes was once his employer. Her name is Carol. Pierre recalls that they worked together in a business office.
Oh, you got a choice.
But for every memory which returns, Pierre says
I think I
there are
found the
literally
solution.
thousands which
Oh,
remain buried and forgotten.
supposed to be white, aren't they?
I just want to find out what
You got
the
a
past
choice.
is. If I can.
Mint.
If I try to remember something
It's
too
always
hard,
good to have stuff in stock.
I get a beautiful headache that I wouldn't
Cool.
want to inflict on my worst enemy.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's just,
And most recently, like
it's
those
like I
last
can't
few
put
days, if
full
I try
weight on
not
it
to remember something that's
and
coming
that.
back,
It's
I
still,
get the
my
same
ankle's
thing.
swollen and stuff, but I think it's just
Like
from,
some lumps of things come
I
back
don't know. We'll get there.
that are not especially pleasant.
Smudgy's in the window. Now the sun's going down. Been red hot again, hasn't it?
And, if I try
Been
to
cloudy,
remember
but, you know, warm.
I get the
Again.
same kind of headache. It's
Very
a
warm.
hazy,
What
piercing
is it, like
pain
26?
that engulfs the whole
About
body.
that, yeah.
About 26 degrees.
It's not something nice. It's something I can do without.
You know when it gets really hot, when it starts hitting 37 and 40.
Called our telecenter to say that the young
That's
man
when the
had
aircon
once worked
comes
for his
out.
wife, and that his name is in fact
Well, it's
Pierre
like when it starts
Papin.
hitting 30, you get the aircon out, don't you?
Pierre
Too
soon
fucking
learned that
hot.
he has 2 sisters and that his parents live in Lachine, Canada, where his father
Still
practices
can't get on
medicine.
my website.
The next day, they spoke on the phone for the first time in more than 5 months.
It was a very emotional moment. And then I even had to tell him that I couldn't even trust him 100%, that I wanted a package with family pictures in it, and with my birth certificate in it, and anything else he could think of. He said, okay, we'll send that to you. And then he said, do you remember your mom? And I said, no. And she was listening on the extension.
Yeah.
And she
I hate
burst into
summer.
tears.
I absolutely despise it.
A few days later, the packet arrived.
Autumn and winter.
Pierre sat down with his
Spring's
fiancée,
slowly growing on me, innit?
and a friend
But I hate
to get
summer.
reacquainted with his
Always
past.
have done.
It is strange to be
winter.
told who you are and what you did. I'm someone. And for quite a few months, I was nobody and nothing.
Prefer winter for some reason. Autumn and winter.
Next, the heartwarming reunion of a woman and her family.
Summer heat to very cold winters. Yeah, you're in Canada though, aren't you?
On a previous
I
broadcast,
like it here when it's
profiled the case of a
autumn
woman
because
named
all the
Lorraine
leaves
Roberts,
coming off and the smell.
mysteriously vanished in
I like the
1962.
smell of it.
Had no idea that she was one of the heirs to $1 million estate. In a happy turn of events, Lorraine herself was watching television on the night of our broadcast
Looks like kicking the leaves
and saw
about.
her own story of unsolved mysteries.
Used to, won't do that anymore either. After I found that
In
out.
1951, Lorraine Roberts was 16 years old, working as a waitress in Austin,
Because they're rotting
Texas.
down, they're
She
full of
fell in love.
mold spores, aren't they?
Yes. How about I take you for a whirl?
When you kick them, it kicks up a
Lorraine
load
and
of
the young
spores.
serviceman were married just 10 years after they met. By 1956, the couple had 2 sons and a daughter, but the marriage was on the rocks. When her husband filed for divorce, Lorraine was left to raise the children on her own.
Will you be in charge for Mommy? Will you do that for me? God, I gotta go now. I gotta go. Will you watch everything for me, okay?
I don't think that goes there.
She worked and she tried to handle, her situations.
Religious Testament.
And she loved her children very much. But that was just something she couldn't handle.
you
She
were
said
right.
she couldn't handle it. And she tried to get help from her husband. No help.
Finally, Lorraine
No,
thought
I've
she
never,
had no
I've never
choice
liked
but to
summer.
give her children
Did when I
up
was
for
a kid.
adoption.
Going to Cornwall and stuff.
The decision left Lorraine
When I
shattered.
started going to,
Her emotional
when I
state
started going
grew
to Spain
increasingly
and
fragile.
places like that, and it was just like
Finally, in 1957,
I
the
started
stress
getting
became
bored.
too great, and Lorraine was admitted to a state mental facility.
Even on the day trips as
2
well.
years later, while on furlough from
I
the
was getting
facility,
bored.
Lorraine paid a short visit to her sister Ruby. No one in the family ever heard from her again. In 1988, Lorraine became one of the heirs to $1 million estate after the death of her mother. An extensive search was launched.
From the last holiday I had when I went with Dad. Yeah.
When
And
we
even
heard
he
the
said,
story, we never imagined that
you
Lorraine
know,
would call our telecenter and
let's
solve
go in
her
the
own
internet
mystery.
cafe, because I bet you're bored.
Lorraine's family was overjoyed to learn that she was alive and well.
I was like, no, you're
Her
alright.
sister Ruby immediately flew to Little Rock, Arkansas, where Lorraine had been working as a housekeeper for just room and board.
Well, that was the holiday I got robbed on.
A few days later, Ruby brought Lorraine back
Put my
home
name
to
on the
Austin,
copy for
Texas,
Spain
for a
for me.
poignant
We'll never
reunion
go
with
back
the
there
rest of
again.
her family.
Fucking robbed twice. I only went for a week.
It was unbelievable. I could hardly believe it because I guess for so long we had searched and searched for her and we couldn't find a lead.
I was so enthused, I cried, I laughed, I did everything.
Yes, it's nice to be back. They're real nice. They've
Are you
always
looking
been.
for all these bits?
They're original people that are very darling people.
After we filmed this reunion, Lorraine remained in Austin for 3 months. She received her $105,000 inheritance and has since returned to her home in Arkansas.
This is the wonderful person we look for.
One of the Scratch channels had his home
We're gonna
destroyed
try
by
to
a
be happy
tornado.
and
Well,
do
Max
all the
Scratch, yeah.
things we can
Yeah.
to
Seen
be
it.
together and love each other and entertain
Crazy.
our children
Storms
and
were bad
grandchildren,
yesterday. They're going to be even worse today, they reckon.
which I think will be real good for Lorraine.
Springfield
And
got hit
all of
really
us.
bad yesterday. Sure, it was Max Scratch or so. Still sub to them all. We're still getting notifications.
From time to time, the authorities contact us with fast-breaking cases, hoping that an urgent appeal to our viewers may help solve them. Our first special alert tonight is a tragic story of a woman who was kidnapped and later murdered.
Yeah, because he set up a GoFundMe.
Joseph and Lois Krantz of Kalamazoo, Michigan, had been married for 14 years, none of them easy. Joseph had been in and out of prison since the mid-1970s for offenses ranging from burglary to fraud to forgery. On July 31st, 1992, he was released from jail after serving 2.5 months for embezzlement and parole violation. At the time, his wife Lois was pregnant with the couple's third child, and she had recently contacted legal aid about seeking a divorce.
I still never understand why they keep building
On
their
August
houses out of
5th,
wood.
less than a week after his release, Joseph Krantz showed up at Lois's apartment, brandishing a gun.
Think about
Her
things,
friend,
don't they?
Janice McCrae, was with Lois that
The
morning.
first thing I fucking do,
She went into the bedrooms to get some stuff.
build my house out of fucking
We went
brick
into the living room.
with solid foundations.
While we were sitting there, Lois come running out of the bedroom going, oh no, just screaming.
Krantz forced his
Go
wife
back
into
to
a
work,
car
saved
and
his
sped
life.
away.
Fucking hell.
That night, he called his mother and told her that he had killed Lois and dumped her body near a lake about 30 miles from Kalamazoo. 3 days later, Lois Krantz's body was found in the general area her husband had described. She had been shot once in the head. On August 12, 1992, Lois Krantz was laid to rest. Her 2 daughters are now with relatives in a place where they will be safe from their father. Joseph Krantz has not been seen since he kidnapped his wife, and authorities believe he may now be in Florida.
He's not going back to work, is he? That's what goes on, isn't it? Right.
In our second special alert case,
We
another
watch
family
all
has
the
been
storm
shattered by a
chasing
killer.
channels, don't we?
The victim is a 65-year-old
have them
woman
on.
who suffers from severe asthma and must
Even
have
if they don't
daily
find out, I
medication.
just like the driving. You know what I mean?
Martha Doe Roberts and her husband Alan
Yeah,
lived in East
and I'm
Tennessee,
getting to know
25
couples.
miles from Memphis. Alan last saw his wife when he left for work at 9:30 a.m. on August 7th, 1992. When he returned later in the afternoon, his wife was gone. That night, Alan Roberts received a ransom call. A muffled male voice demanded
On the TV
$100,000
aerial.
and threatened he would split
Cable.
open Martha's head.
Wow, how
The
old's that?
kidnapper has made no further contact.
If Doe is released,
Remember them?
I will meet any demand.
Yeah, I do.
I will do whatever is necessary to obtain her release.
I found a few.
He was very lucky he got called back to work. Very lucky. He's in the state of it. Bitches.
Next week on Unsolved Mysteries, Senator Huey Long of Louisiana. In his day, the most fascinating character in American politics. But in 1935, Long died in a flurry of gunfire in his own state capital. History records that his assassin, Dr. Carl Weiss, was killed almost instantly by the senator's bodyguards. Today there is mounting evidence that Dr. Weiss may have been innocent, and that the truth may have been shrouded by a cover. Join me next time. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.
Maybe on the Scots selector. Piece of railway track. Broken. Disconnected. Oh! That's heavy. You're doing that. You're doing shit like that. Oops. Tyson.
Right.
This program.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to call it now.
Hey.
I will be
What time
live
is it?
later on. It's nearly 1:30.
Oh God, is that the time?
Mhm.
Freaking hell.
I will be live later on, and we got a quiz to do tonight. So I hope you guys can join in then.
Oh, we've got Family Feud.
Yes, I'm gonna do some Family Feud.
Yes, now we've got the whole fucking game.
Yep. So I'm gonna have a play of that game instead. Yep. Lots and lots and lots of cards to play. So we'll see you guys then. Lots of love to you all. Take care of yourself. Bye everybody. Stay safe out there for those who've got storms. Bye everybody.